Welcome to session 3. In today's session, we will be discussing the law of the land, the wine land that is. By gaining an understanding of the basic principles governing European and international wine law, we will be able to gain an understanding of the wine label and what it tells us. We will start the session looking at European and French wine law. We will look at the higher quality appellations as well as the lower quality appellations. Next, we look at the wine label and the information it must provide us with. The wine label can give us indications about the quality and style of a wine, but not certainty. New World wine laws are very different to the European wine laws. In fact, they are simplified versions, allowing the New World wineries to experiment in order to produce the best wine. Lastly, we will look at the techniques and varietal differences in European and New World wine law. The oldest wine law on record was created by the Roman Emperor. However, this law has no effect on us today. In other words, wine has been an important part of our culture for thousands of years. To ensure quality, laws and guidelines are necessary. Today, most European wine laws are similar to some extent. The most important European wine appellation is called PDO, Protected Designation of Origin. This is the highest appellation in Europe and has been put in place to ensure continuity of style within the different wine regions in Europe. In other words, wines from the same region will be made in a similar style. This makes it easy to distinguish between wines and choose the style we want to enjoy. The rules include the grape varieties allowed in the wine region, the minimum and maximum alcohol level, maximum yields, and winemaking techniques. The laws are different for every single PDO, who have their own specific laws. Each European country have their own translation of PDO. The French equivalent is AOC or AC, which stands for Appellation d'origine contrôlée. Producers can decide themselves if they use the local AOC appellation or if they prefer the European PDO terminology. The majority of wine producers use local labels, terms such as AOC in France. We will be covering the different European appellations when we discuss the individual countries. One step down the appellation ladder is the PGI or Protected Geographical Indication. All European countries have their own terminology for PGI as well. In France, this is referred to as Vin de Pays or IGP. IGP stands for Indication Géographique Protégée. PGI was created to motivate lower quality vine growers to improve quality and qualify for PGI status. PGI status covers much larger areas than PDOs. In some cases, they cover several regions, such as is the case in Languedoc and Roussillon in France. This PGI is known as Vin de Pays d'Oc. To give you an idea, there are more than 30 AOCs covered by the PGI designation in this region. The advantage of using the PGI designation is freedom for the winemaker. Freedom to choose the grape variety, higher yields are permitted, and all the stringent AOC rules do not apply either. For that reason, this indication is great for creating large volume brands, as wines can be blended from large regions and made to the exact specifications the producer wishes. Many AOC producers declassify some of their wines to the PGI designation. This is done when producers make wines which are not allowed by their PDO laws. Generally, PGI wines are of a lower quality, but is often better value for money. A few PGI wines sell at super premium prices, so do not judge PGI wines until you know what you have in front of you. The last classification, which is stated here as Vin de France, is also known as wine or table wine. Here the rules of production is practically none existing, and the quality of wine is very low. These wines will not be allowed to state the region in which they have been made in. They are simply allowed to state which country they are made in, and as such can be blends of wine from all over a country. When looking at a wine label, several types of information must always be there. The producer's name or brand, such as Louis Jadot. Looking at the label on the pictures, we clearly see Louis Jadot on each one. Next, the region or PDO must be stated. In this case, we can see on the top picture the middle wine is from the village of Puy-Fuissé. Another thing you can find on labels is the varietal. In this case, the lower right picture shows us that the wine is made from Chardonnay. However, if you look at other labels, they do not give the same information. This is because certain appellations have to be made with specific grape varieties. Burgundy, for example, is always made from Chardonnay. For that reason, it does not have to be stated on the bottle. It is increasingly popular to put the grape variety on the label as consumers recognize the grape varieties that they like. If the grape variety is stated on a bottle, at least 85% of the grapes must be of that grape and from the vintage stated. If two varietals are mentioned on the label, 100% of the grapes must be from the mentioned varieties. Most champagnes and sparkling wines are made this way. Most wines state the vintage on the bottle. This is very important information as consumers can identify wines from good and bad vintages. They can also identify how long a bottle has already aged. Still wines typically state the vintage, but for champagne and sparkling wine, it is typical not to. Instead, they state non-vintage or NV. This is not a bad thing. It simply means that different vintages are blended in order to make the desired wine. Moving on to alcohol by volume or ABV. By law, it is required to state the alcohol percentage in wine, but aside from that, the ABV of a wine provides us wine lovers with a lot of information. By knowing the alcohol percentage, we can guess if it will be light, medium, or full-bodied. We will know if it is dry or off-dry. Off-dry wines have not been fermented completely dry, and therefore still have some sugar left in the wine. This makes them slightly sweeter, but also lowers the alcohol percentage. The label may also state if the wine has undergone MFL, has aged in new oak barrels or stainless steel tanks. Some producers choose to explain everything about the wine on the label. Others hardly tell you anything about the wine-making techniques. In the New World, laws are slightly different, or let's say more friendly towards the individual winemaker's wishes. However, the golden rule still stands. The more specific the area, in general, the better the quality. If we can see from the label the individual estate or field where the vine has been grown, this is normally a good sign. By knowing the field or estate, we can research the exact geographical attributes such as climate and aspect. This will give us a very good idea about the quality of the wine before we even taste it. In the New World, the region or state is considered the largest area which can be put on the label. For example, Southeast Australia. As you can see on the map, it is a huge area. In fact, the landmass of Southeast Australia covers around half of Europe. California is about as big as France, and so on. Because the geographical denominations are so big, this gives enormous chance for producers to make brands which always taste the same and are of a decent quality. Many good producers sell their grapes when they are not happy with the vintage and don't want to damage their reputation. These grapes are then blended with other wines to make a final product. Generally, these big labels and appellations produce bulk wines and well-known brands of lesser quality. As the Golden Rule states, the more specific information, the better. In the New World, there are also smaller appellations which are typically made up by counties of smaller regions. Two examples of these are the counties of Sonoma and Napa in California. These two counties are very well known for producing outstanding wine. However, each county is big, and we don't know where in the county the wine is actually made. Wine styles within a county can also differ substantially, depending on the macroclimate it is located in. When wine labels state specific valleys, normally you know you are getting something worth your while. Napa Valley in Napa County makes some of the finest wines in the world. Barossa Valley in Australia is known for making fruit bomb Shiraz wines at the highest level. However, the same thing that makes New World wines great, the flexible laws, are what makes it difficult knowing what you are actually buying, because each winemaker can choose to use the grapes and techniques he or she sees fit. And so, two vineyards next to each other using the same grapes and barrel age their wines can have completely different styles. The only way to know is to try, or if you're lucky, it is stated on the label. Techniques and varietals. To get a feel for the difference between the New World and Old World, this slide is very useful. In the Old World, better known as Europe, the varietals have already been chosen for the winemaker by the PDO. In the New World, the winemaker can choose whatever varietals they see fit. In the New World, higher yields are permitted. The labeling rules are much more liberal, and so are the winemaking rules. For example, the New World wine law states 75% of the named varietals must be in the wine. In Europe, the minimum is 85%. For that reason, most producers who export to Europe include 85% of the varietals stated on the label in order to be allowed to mention the grape variety on the label. In the Old World, specific winemaking techniques are used in specific areas in order to follow the wine laws. In the New World, it is the choice of the winemaker. Essentially, this means that in Europe, wines with similar label information in a specific appellation should be similar wines, whereas similar labels in the New World can be completely different wines. Cartman from South Park expresses the New World wine laws very well. To summarize this session, we can agree that European wine law under the PDO system is very strict. It does, however, help to create particular styles which consumers recognize when buying wine from particular areas such as Bordeaux or Chianti Classico. The PGI laws, on the other hand, are less strict and more like the New World wine laws. As such, they also cover multiple regions like the New World wine appellations. This means that winemakers can make the style of wine which they like by declassifying it to a lower rank of PGI. This does, however, come with some risk, as it can be difficult to sell at the same price as the higher quality designated PDO appellation. In the New World, huge regions can be put on the label, which allows winemakers to blend wines in enormous quantities. This is good when building brands, as it is easy to avoid vintage variations and to have consistent flavor. The better wines come from certain areas, such as valleys, and estates from certain valleys. There is one challenge with New World wine. The challenge is knowing exactly what it will taste like from the information you get on the label. But the golden rule is here to help us. The more specific the area, the better. An estate wine will typically be better than a wine from Southeast Australia, especially if the wine comes from a well-respected area. To this we can add, the more detailed the label, the better, because a detailed label can tell us pretty much everything we need to know about the wine. That is the end of session 3 on winemaking. After this, you deserve a good glass of wine. Enjoy.